are listening to the Balancing Act podcast. Here's your hosts, Jamie Wonko and Joe Vitale.
Well, hey, guess what? We're officially recording.
Officially, welcome to the red box is up. The red rectangle is going. Welcome to the Balancing Act podcast. I am Jamie Wonko here with Mr. Joseph Just Worked Out Vitale.
What would have just worked out if not for car trouble.
Let's just pretend you did.
Let's just pretend I did. Let's do it.
How was your workout? Great?
It was amazing.
Terrific.
It was so great. I do have a little update for our listeners because we had talked about, you had kind of challenged me to, find something to, remember I talked about I like to, I haven't been racing in a little while, like running and stuff like that. So I did register myself for a race for April of 2025, which I'm excited about. So hopefully
it's the Matthew McConaughey challenge.
Hopefully, yes. Hopefully,
something to look up to, forward to, back to, around the town.
Yeah, something like that.
Yes, very good.
All right. No, it's exciting, which is good. So update to the listeners. We'll keep you posted on that. I think part of the motivation was like watching the recent finishers of the New York City Marathon, which I've done before. And I was like, I need to really go back and do that again. And then watching it, it's like my wife always cries. She'll watch it and cry and cry and cry and cry and cry and cry. Because like, oh, it's so amazing and the people and the things. And she's really always excited about it. And she's like, I'm going to do it. And then I'm like, yeah, are you though?
I was watching it on TV and I was not crying. I was hysterical because people make signs and their signs say the funniest things.
Yes.
And Michelle Charlesworth was on with like another anchor and they were like out in the streets. And this woman had this like big sign that said like, you can do it even if you're farting.
Yes.
And the news anchor like had a point and like Michelle Charlesworth was me in that moment. Like she could not gain her composure.
Yes.
She laughed so hard. It was the whole thing was fantastic.
My favorite marathon sign, and I've seen it at multiple halves and full marathons that I've done, is worst parade ever. I don't know why it makes me laugh every single time. You're running better than our country is. I've seen that one, which is topical.
Yes.
But yeah, they're always a good time. And the ones of course, the ones about bathroom humor are right up our alley. So
just so good.
So anyway, we have a guest waiting now that we're talking about ridiculous things.
I know. I mean, we're going to have a very serious discussion today.
Yes.
And so waiting in the wings is a teacher, educator from the great state of New Jersey.
Yes. Let's bring her in.
Let's bring her in.
Hey, buddy.
Hello,
how are
Kristen.
you? I do think that your mic might be off right now because I see the little.
Yeah,
there we go.
hi.
Now we're live. Hey, how are you? Kristen, thank you very much for joining us today. On all the socials at Teacher Pay with K, on TikTok and Instagram. I came across your content. We talked over the summer about having you on, and you were a very busy lady, which we'll kind of get into it just a little bit.
Yeah.
So we're very excited to have you today to have a little conversation about, the state of teacher pay in maybe the United States and New Jersey. I think it's going to be a great discussion, and we're so happy to have you today. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. I'm really excited to talk to some fellow New Jersey teachers about teacher pay and pensions and everything.
Yeah, so we are super excited to have you. So just tell us a little bit about yourself. If you don't want to go into or be specific about where you're teaching, you could just talk about how long you've been doing the job. What are some other things that you're involved with that you enjoy, stuff like that.
Yeah, so I've been teaching in total probably about 12 or 13 years now. I actually started teaching down in North Carolina, which is a right to work state. So there is no collective bargaining down there. And that made a huge difference. I only lasted about 5 years down there and I quit. And I thought I was like quitting the profession. I was like, I just can't do this. Teaching is not for me. I briefly worked as actually a union organizer for American Federation of Teachers, which is like the other main education union. And I just really missed the classroom. So I ended up moving back to New Jersey and I got back into the classroom up here. And it was just such a difference to have a strong union and have a contract and have like scheduled start and end times and know what days my staff meetings were going to be and how long that they could keep me. And I was like, oh, I actually can teach. I just need a strong union to do it. And that's why I got involved in the union. I actually got elected as union rep, I think like my second month in the district.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and then I got elected as president of our local before I was even tenured in the district.
Wow. Okay, so yeah, that's Jamie and I, as you are probably aware to our listeners, we've been teaching in New Jersey for this is year 26 for me, and this is year what year is this for you? Am I allowed to ask
24.
that? 24.
24.
24. And you're also only 24, so you've been teaching since
I'm the
birth.
Doogie Howser of
You're
teachers.
I used to love Doogie Howser. I really did.
I mean,
I
come
know.
on.
What was his friend's name? What was the guy's name?
Vinny,
You remember
right?
Vinny
Vinny?
Del Pino. Vinny Del Pino. That was his
Kristen
name.
seems young, like she missed
I'm
that.
showing the age. I don't even know what show you're talking about.
I was gonna say, based on her
She's like
face,
the new one on
doesn't know.
Disney Plus. No,
Yeah.
we're talking about
yeah. Doogie Howser, MD, was played by none other than Neil Patrick Harris.
Yes, he was.
And Neil Patrick Harris was a teenager at the time, and he played a genius who was like 16 years old and already a doctor. And he was Doogie Howser, MD. So, like in our age group, people in their like mid to late 40s, if anyone ever wants to do anything or play that they're very young, they say like, I'm a Doogie Howser. But,
The other thing is like he had a computer. And then
yes.
at the end of the episode, he would be like,
and
yeah,
he'd blog, but like
he'd like
blogs weren't a thing.
It wasn't a blog, it was like a diary. And he did like a
Yes.
thing. And it was like, oh my God, that's so cool that he's like doing this like diary and blah, blah, blah.
And he
'Cause
had a
it's, like,
computer
in his room.
in
It's
his
like,
bedroom.
wow, you have your own personal computer, smarty pants.
Yeah.
The 1980s.
Yeah.
Don't mind us as we ramble. So no, we Jamie and I, of course, have been in the profession for a while. We are tier 1 on the New Jersey pension system, which gives us some great benefits.
So much energy.
Tier 1 energy, right? Which we have talked about before. So I don't want to get into the whole like explanation of the New Jersey pension system, but you also said that you were in North Carolina. Like, did they have the same type of setup in regards to like teacher pension and retirement and stuff like that as New Jersey does now, or was it something completely different?
No, it was definitely a similar pension. I believe in North Carolina, you were vested after 5 full years. I just missed it. I think I was there for like 4.8 years. So I'm actually in the process of buying my years back for my New Jersey pension right now.
Okay.
Yeah, it was similar. It's definitely still a defined contribution retirement program down there. I don't know the details. If I'm being honest, I taught down there from like 22 to 27, and retirement was the furthest thing on my mind at that point.
Yeah.
I'm sure. And as most people are thinking, same for myself. Like when you get started and you start contributing to, your pension or a 403b investment fund, or you start like, that's so far away from now. And then you blink your eyes and here you are, having taught for what feels like a million years.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things we wanted to talk to you about was, for ourselves who are tier 1, and we are in Jamie and I both teach in the same district. We're in central New Jersey. We work in a district that pays very well. We have a very good pay scale. We are at the top of the salary guide. So I don't want to say like, okay, we shouldn't care about what happens below us, but why should we care is basically what I think would be an important thing to start talking about.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of different reasons. You guys are both tier 1. I'm tier 5. Right off the bat, that means that tier 5, we can't retire until 65. And that's not even the worst part. I think the worst part that a lot of people don't realize is that you can obviously retire early, but there is a significant penalty to doing it. It's a 3% deduction for every year under 65 you are when you declare retirement. So if a tier 5 wanted to retire at 55, even if they had the 25 years of experience and they tried to retire at 55 like tier 1 can do, it's a 30% reduction in their pension. So we're talking about the difference of like thousands of dollars each year, and like cumulative, then it's such a big gap. And I think that's part of why we're just not seeing young people enter the profession anymore. I mean, I think nationally, our teacher preparation programs are at like a historically low enrollment. And not that, these 18, 19, 20-year-old, young adults are thinking about the pension, but the narrative now is that the benefits just aren't what they used to be. Teaching used to be a trade-off. I say that all the time.
Yeah.
My mom was a teacher for, 20 something years. And it used to be like, okay, the pay wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible. And we had, fully paid health insurance as part of our compensation package. You had that tier 1 pension, and those things just don't exist anymore. I mean, I don't know what it's like for you guys in your district for health insurance, but there's people across the state that are paying $10,000 annually for a family plan. And it's probably going to keep going up as the insurance gets more expensive. And then you add on to that the fact that, people my age and younger have to work until we're 65, and it just doesn't make sense anymore. Like are summers off really worth it when you spend all summer working? Because I'm in that situation as a tier 1, I live by myself. It's just me paying the bills. I work a second job over the summer and on weekends during the school year to, pay the bills, have savings. And at that point, it's like, well, I love teaching, but I don't know if I would recommend this career to someone in college thinking about it anymore. And I think that's where the tier 5 people come in, where you guys need to make sure that you still have colleagues and you've got new teachers coming in to fill those positions. Otherwise, what does it look like in a school? Do you have these empty classrooms, or your class size is getting bigger because you can't fill them? And I think that's the part that really impacts the tier 1 teachers directly.
Yeah. Is there a year? So like we have 25, 55, you guys are 65. Is there a certain number of years?
Nope. It's 65 no matter what. So by the time I hit 65, if I teach that whole way through, I will have 43 years of experience.
That's bananas.
Yeah. The fact that, I mean, I'm 34. I've been teaching, like I said, I think 12 or 13 years. And I still have to teach another 31 years to collect my full retirement.
And full is still not, just for anyone who might be listening and not know, full is not 100% of your salary. So if you, I know for me, for example, and these are like rough estimates that I was given a few years back when I had asked, but if I make it to like 57, I would get about 60% of my salary. If I made it to 59, 60, it would be 70%. So very different from police, where they get, after 20 years, a much larger amount. It's in a shorter period of time. For us, it's still only between 60 and 70%. And that's for us that at 25 years and 55 years of age. The idea of 65 to me, and I talk about this with the students a lot, we talk about life expectancy, and life expectancy in the state of New Jersey is like 78 years old. So it's really terrible to think that people would be working until they're 65 and then having such a short amount of time in which to really kind of enjoy any of that before you die.
Yeah. And,
I don't know how else to put it, but it's so true.
There is no other way to put it. And God forbid you're the person that retires at 65 and then catastrophic illness or something happens and you're not able to enjoy that time either with your grandchildren or traveling with your spouse or doing the things that you've always planned for.
Right.
Everybody's in a different place. Like you even said, Kristen, that you're 34, right? And we had talked, off this podcast about you're a field hockey coach, correct?
Yep.
And also like your work, you said you work a job in the summer. What do you do in the summertime, if you don't mind me asking?
So it's summer and weekends in most of the school year. I waitress, but it's more of like a wedding venue. We do a lot of events. And it's in Monmouth County. That's where I teach too. But September and October for me are crazy. I teach, all day, and then we have field hockey. And there are Fridays where I get to school at 6:30 in the morning. I'm at school all day. I will go to field hockey practice and then I leave field hockey and go work at a wedding. And I don't get home until 11 or 12 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And part of that's on me. Like, I'm crazy and I understand that. But
Well, you
But
also
it's
said
not
that-
though if you need
yeah.
the money, like who
Yeah.
doesn't need the money?
Yeah.
And that's
I
the
mean,
thing with even moving up the pay scales. You still
Mhm.
need the money.
Yeah, and I mean,
sometimes I'm
I'm-
like, where's
I'm-
my money?
yeah.
I think my son eats it.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Metaphorically.
Yeah, of course.
So, also like I tutor on the side for I do virtual tutoring. I also, in the summertime, if there's curriculum work, I've been doing that for a number of summers because that's all, work from home type of stuff.
Yeah.
I know where my mental capacity lies. Like I'm thinking of your schedule and like that interaction with people would no, I know how that sounds, but like I know
lot of
like
people.
there are times when my battery is, and Jamie and I have talked about this both on the podcast and off. There are times when your battery is just like I'm at E and I cannot do this anymore.
Yeah.
Meaning like there are times I get home and I'll be like sitting and just not like sitting in silence, but I'll just be like watching the news and like my wife will be on a call and my son will be like listening to a video on his phone and I'll be like, look, I can't. Like one of the two of you has to either like I won't tell that to my wife because she's on a call for work, but I'll say to my son, like, hey man, you got to either get your headphones or go in your room and listen because I cannot have all the noise going on at once. There's times where like your battery is just so drained, and like I commend you for like you called yourself crazy. I get it, but like that is an insane schedule to work for your mental health.
Yeah.
Okay?
But, and I think though, this is like a good conversation too, talking about teachers having to go to 65. Because when I make these TikTok videos, a lot of times people will leave comments and be like, well, that's what everyone has to do. Everyone has to work that long. And it's like, well, first of all, maybe you guys should organize and start your own union. It sounds like you need one. But then, more importantly, teaching is a job that like is very intense with the mental load and the energy you're putting into it mentally and physically. And like I teach high school, so physically it's not that demanding, but I think about the teachers in my district who work in our early childhood learning centers with the 3-year-olds, the 4-year-olds, the kindergartners. And like, is that a job you want until you're 65? Is that a job you're going to be able to physically be able to do until you're 65? And I think that's the part that the general public doesn't necessarily understand as well. That I also, I mean, do you want to still be 65 having to keep up with all of the latest research and all the things coming out? And I think that's what's missing from a big part of that conversation too.
Yeah, like you become, the dinosaur. It's either adapt or die, right? And like we're I mean, Jamie and I know I wouldn't say Jamie and I are experiencing that, but in a way we are. Like there's people that of course know more than we do in regards to educational technology and how things work and how to instruct using these tools that, because we're focusing more on maybe traditional methods, using my air quotes for those of you who are not watching on YouTube. But it's an important conversation. And I think for those of us that are at the top of the guide, right, it is important for us to be mindful of what's happening below us, because not having a competitive pay scale, not having something that's going to attract people to work not only in your district but in the profession in general can have an effect on your tier 1 people of larger class sizes. I mean, how many of us are covering a class because they don't have anyone to fill that position, or a friend of ours who is like, and she just raised her hand. I didn't want
me. I do. I mean, I'm covering a class right now, and but I'm very well compensated, in my opinion. Now, there are other people who feel so in our newest contracts, they had changed if you were covering a class. I think it's, let's say, like about $55, $52, something like that.
Yeah.
That was just for 1 hour of the day. You just kind of swing in. The teacher has left plans. If you are covering the class and you're teaching the class, it's $75 for a day.
That is
Now,
a nice distinction to have.
it's a very nice, because
and it's a very important one, because it is not, I cover, it's not labor intensive to cover.
Right.
Yeah.
I only have one non-negotiable, which is, and this is from you, buddy. I will not cover a phys ed classroom,
Oh,
in
no.
a phys ed class in a classroom. You want me to go in the gym and shoot baskets and play
Yeah.
volleyball? I'll totally do that. I have no
No,
shame.
No, I also would not cover gym in a
Yeah.
gym.
They've done that before, and I'm like, absolutely not. And if
Yeah.
and the one time, and the person who does the covering kind of looked at me, and I said, yeah. I said, that is my non-negotiable. I will cover literally anything. I will not do that
Yeah.
because I know when I do that, mentally for the rest of the day, I am shot. Because those kids don't want to be in gym doing a writing sample.
Yeah.
They want to be like getting a little bit of a release. And when they don't have enough teachers to cover, like that is not something I want to put myself in. My regular students, the ones that I see every day, do not get the best me when I'm put in that position. So I have to I have to draw a hard line in that. And people they kind of look at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, look, I never say no. I have one non-negotiable. And I kind of draw a pretty hard line in the sand with something like that because I think it's important. But it is an important distinction to have those two areas of pay, because covering a class and, hey, you guys are going to be on Google Classroom, the teacher posted everything, make sure you're on task, you circulate around the room, you give out some bathroom passes, you make sure everybody's good to go, is completely different than, well, she's got to do all the plans, contact the parents, fill out the interns, do the grading reports, the usual stuff that gets done. There should be a difference.
Yeah.
There should be a difference in pay.
And there is, but there are still people who will say like, I don't want to do it. It's not, the money's no good. And I'm always like, what are you doing for that? Like I don't like, let's say you clear like $50 a day or something. I'm like, what? So I get like, there are certain situations where everyone has to define like what's worth it to me kind of a thing. But I've been covering since the beginning of the school year, and I'm actually at the point now where I've gotten so invested in my class. I don't want to not keep going.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of like, leave us alone now. Like now we're through a whole marking period together. Like leave us alone because, and I've also invested a lot in them emotionally, as any good teacher does with their classes anyway. So I would feel like terrible, like to abandon them. Obviously it wouldn't be my choice, but
let's also like examine why this is happening. We don't have people applying for long-term sub positions.
No.
Yeah.
We have language, we have like world language positions that are completely unfilled, because I know for a fact that superintendents have gone to like Rutgers University and other top institutions to encourage people who are in a multilingual program to go into teaching, and they don't do it because that's not what they want to do.
Yeah.
But like there are literally no candidates that are coming out for these things. Like
I know.
This is the first time in my career that I remember multiple jobs just being unfilled.
Yes.
I know. And think back, I mean, just a decade ago, I wasn't teaching up here, but like I said, my mom's an educator. And in New Jersey, 10, 15 years ago, you were getting 300 applicants for a single position.
Yeah.
That's what it was like. And now, I mean, same thing. I'm high school math. And last year we had 2 job postings up, and I think we got 1 candidate in months that they were posted. And that's what it's looking like right now, because people just aren't entering the profession anymore.
Yeah. And in order to encourage them to do so, you have to make some kind of distinction. Like you said, use an important word, trade-off, right? Okay, you're going to go into this profession, and it's not easy to do this. I'm not looking for a pat on the back or a medal.
Right.
Okay. But it can be a very challenging job. It is a very labor intensive job if you do it right. If you want to phone it in, well, the kids are also going to know that too. It's just a very challenging thing if you don't have that incentive to be like, okay, I'm going to have this great retirement package. I'm going to have the benefits. I'm going to have the work-life balance. And that becomes, the trade-off. Like if you don't have that anymore, people are like, I'll go do something else. It's like, yeah, I'll go work for, XYZ publishing company and do editing and work a 9 to 5 or work from home a couple days a week and be done with it.
Yeah.
And
my algorithm is filled with what other jobs teachers can do if the teachers don't want to be a teacher, and it's like, well, I'm hopefully have 10 years to go if I wanted to retire at 55, but and whether or not, I mean, 10 years seems so far away at this point. Like I
Yep.
don't think about that exactly. But what I do think about often is, oh gosh, please don't do anything else. Like don't take anything else away, because also from our point of view, when we started, I know I've said this so many times, so I'm sorry that I'm saying it again, but I really hate a deal that was changed after it was already agreed upon. So when I agreed to become a teacher and I signed my contract, it was, you're going to have medical benefits. Your medical benefits are paid for. You can retire at this age. This is what you're going to get. And so when they came in and they changed everything, I mean, we are a family that went from, both of us having, my husband's a teacher also. So like both of us having medical coverage. Then it was, okay,
Same.
you gotta pay in. Then it was, okay, you can waive it, but we'll pay you to waive it and you'll get $5,000 a year. Then it was, we're not paying you to waive it anymore. But you have to waive it anyway. And it paying like over $10,000 a year for the medical coverage.
Yep.
That seems to change every couple of years. Even today, I was calling for a prescription for my son, and they were like, "Well, you need this," and there were things that I was like, "What?" We used to have like, what everybody said was like the platinum insurance, and now it's like things are denied left and right, and so I'm like, oh gosh, like another chip away at at what our deal was at some point in time that all of a sudden it wasn't.
Well, you had the transition from the traditional Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield plan to the state-run plan, and there's also, does anybody either, since we're all in New Jersey, the something is sunsetting at the end of a certain year. It's like the chapter 67 something with the health insurance. There's like a health insurance law of like contributions that's actually sunsetting, and then districts can negotiate I think Kristen might be Googling.
Yeah, I feel like I kind of know what you're talking about. Probably related to chapter 77. I'm not super well versed on it, but that's what brought back kind of not better insurance, but maybe like a better tiered payment schedule for our newer employees. Because like you're saying, Jamie, you guys are paying over $10,000 a year for health insurance when it used to be free for teachers.
Same.
Yeah. And that's because in large part, a lot of the more veteran staff are on that like direct 10 or direct 15 plan, and you're paying a percent of the premium, and those premiums change like drastically. They skyrocket each year. So for the newer employees, they don't get direct 10 or direct 15. They're getting what's called the educator health plan. And it's like maybe a slightly lower version of our health insurance. They don't have all the same benefits. They're paying more for copays, but they are paying a percent of their salary. So I believe right now that's like state mandated.
Yes.
And that's what like districts could potentially start negotiating. Although I will say, one of the big wins we had in my district in the last contract that, I negotiated, we actually tied all of our more veteran staff, so the people on direct 10, direct 15, they all pay a percent of their salary now too. So our insurance is still going up each year, what we're contributing, but it's never going to jump up like an unpredictable amount the way that these premiums do. We've got, a chart that says if you make $70,000 and you're on a family plan, you are paying this percent of your salary, so that it's like, what's coming. At least it's not going to be a surprise. And you're never going to pay more in insurance than what you like make as a raise that year. You're never going to have that like net negative, people call it.
I had that for a number of years where we had a net negative where it was, okay, I was making X amount of dollars more, but then my percentage paying towards my health insurance. So everything just kind of like, it was like, oh, I'm making $6 more a paycheck this year. Amazing. And I understand, the cost of health insurance and healthcare, and that is a conversation for a different time. Because we'll be here for a while. It's just an important thing to continue, having a conversation about. especially as we continue to negotiate contracts every couple of years. I know our current collectively bargained agreement is, I think, 4 years, and it just went into place this year. It's the first time that I can remember us having a 4-year agreement.
Yeah.
And
Our union rep had said that the 4-year agreement has become much more commonplace throughout the state than it ever was before.
yeah.
I mean, I'm fine with the 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, me
The
too.
longer the better right now. We actually tried to get a 5-year deal and my district wouldn't go for it. We just do the standard like 3 years. But yeah, the 4 and even 5-year contracts are definitely becoming more commonplace. And I think it's like to the benefit of staff.
And why is that? Like, why is that becoming the norm?
I think it's easier, obviously the stronger your union is, the more you can push for it. I also think it helps districts on their end because they can start to plan out further too for 4 and 5 years because they know what they're going to be responsible for paying. They can estimate it at least. And I don't know about your district, but my district was hit very hard with the school funding this past year. So I know there are some districts that are nervous to go out more than 3 years. That was one of my district's reasons because they just don't know what, the state funding is going to look like. It's just so unpredictable.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And it does make sense. And we, our district was underfunded for a number of years. And I know that our legislators fought very hard to make sure that we were getting our fair share because of our size. And the fact that we were like one of those, we're not like a state-run district, and we're kind of in the we're in the middle, right? But they were fighting more for equity for our district, which gave us more funding in the long run. But I also know that districts, across the state are always grappling with that decision. Well, what is the funding going to look like from year to year, which becomes a challenge?
Yeah.
So,
what always baffles me, and this is something that I've heard from many different people over the years that I work with. There's always seems to be this gripe with paying more money for higher degrees, and there's often like a school of like they don't deserve that much money if someone has a master's degree or a doctor. And it's so odd to me, like being in education and then not wanting to pay the educated, and I don't know if that's our town thing or people that were annoyed that I had my, it was like, so our most recent contract, it's what now, 6 a year?
I don't know.
Something like that.
Off the top, I think
So
you're right, but I don't know.
6 if you have a master's and like 12 if you have a doctorate. And I mean, we both live in the district in which we work. So to me, like my children are benefiting from people that have higher level degrees. So they should be compensated for that degree. And yet there seems to be this divide of, is that really where is it? No, it's always amazing to me that
is really interesting.
Yeah.
Are you talking from fellow educators, or are you talking from?
Yeah,
okay.
no,
Wow.
No, I'm okay.
from fellow educators. Like, was that really necessary in the contract? Every few years that the contract comes up and that amount goes up, and it has consistently gone up. I think our last contract, it was like one of the bigger jumps that we had. And I was like, yeah, right on. This is great. I'm happy. But
so I have a question for you. Does your district reimburse staff for graduate credits?
Not
yes.
Not a lot.
Not a lot. But they do.
It's normally equal to, I think, Kane, whatever Kane does per credit. Kane University. I mean, you can go anywhere that you want, but that they give you a certain amount, and it's per semester. I think there's like a certain amount, so really it covers like a little bit, like a class and a quarter.
Yeah.
So if you take like a bunch of classes in a year, you're not going to get all that much back.
Yeah. When I did it way back in the day, 19 years ago, and I was finished. Well, I've had my master's for 19 years, and I finished. I remember it cost me about $20,000 total. And, this is going back a really long time. It was like a 42 credit program. And the district gave me, I think like maybe I was reimbursed for like a class a year or something like that. But in the long run, I've seen that money.
Yeah.
I mean,
so that's how I feel
yeah.
too, because we get reimbursed for 6 credits a year. And it's like, 85% of the average in-state tuition or something like that. And I got my master's. I went to Rowan. They have like a program dedicated for teachers who are still in the classroom, so it was easy to do. And I thought about stretching it out to, get the district to cover as much as possible. And I just decided, like, let me just do it. I think I maybe got 5 classes covered. But then, Jamie, the same way, I feel like that's already paying dividends off because it's that jump. So especially in a district where you can get at least something reimbursed, I don't know why teachers would be opposed to being paid more for a master's. I think that's a great part of a contract.
Especially when that's, again, you're trying to attract people to the profession that are like, okay, you want to make sure that people that are in the profession are well educated, and people that decide to go on to an advanced degree should be given should be paid. I don't want to say handsomely, but they should be paid.
Well, and that's another big difference between here and North Carolina. North Carolina stopped their master's pay statewide. I believe the year I started teaching there, you had to have, I believe, started a master's program by like 2012 or 2013. And those people were all grandfathered in. But now anyone who has started after that point in time can never get paid extra for a master's. And that's a state that also has struggled with attracting teachers into the profession. And it's just like you're saying, one of those ways where it's like, well, it used to be more of a trade-off and now it's not. And it's just, I don't know why you wouldn't want to be paid more for a master's.
Yeah. They also used to offer things like, salary credits if you were, gotten specific training or a certification that's not like, maybe you got a specific certification from something, you were given salary credit, so that you might move up the ladder, not having the experience, if you will, because we're paid based on our years of experience, right? So maybe you'd be in year 12, but you'd be being paid on year 15 because you've earned additional salary credits. But that hasn't happened, my goodness, ever in our not since I've been teaching. So if someone wants to get involved, right? Like maybe not like if they're not like involved with their union, okay, meeting as like a union rep, how does one get involved in the conversation? To maybe, make the conversation move forward about attracting quality people to the profession, making sure that we're granting a competitive salary. What are some ways that any teacher, if they wanted to get started at a grassroots level, how would they do that?
Yeah.
Or what would you suggest somebody to do?
I'm gonna sound like I'm working for NJEA here, and I'm not. I'm just a rank and file member. But NJEA, our statewide union, is really pushing this like pension justice campaign to try and eliminate tiers 4 and 5 and kind of shift everyone back down into tier 3. And as someone in tier 5, I mean, that would help immensely. It's not the same as tier 1. I would have to still go until 60, not 55, but that's a whole lot better than 65. The penalties, if you wanted to retire early, were, much less severe. And I think that's a good first step to getting people back into the profession or back interested. So I would definitely look into that. If you Google NJEA pension justice, I believe it'll pop up. You can sign up to become a pension justice advocate, and NJEA sends out kind of some updates. And I also think, getting involved with your union, you don't have to be a union rep. You don't have to be, a elected leader. But if your union has different events, go to them. I know in my district, we do, a winter social. And I think the more people that come out to events like that start to learn about what's going on, in this fight for pension reform and all of the other ways that NJEA is pushing to make the profession more attractive to people again. So I think like those are the best ways to get involved. NJEA also does a lot of statewide conferences, so that's something to look out for. They obviously just had the convention down in AC this past weekend, but they do like winter leadership conferences. They do a summer leadership conference. They do, an Equity Alliance conference. So whatever your niche is in teaching, there's probably a conference or an affinity group for that. So I would just really advocate for people to look for that. Get involved at your local or on a statewide level.
Yeah, that's excellent advice. Especially, that is something we can do just to make sure that we are like, I think it's very important to be informed, even if you're not going to be involved, be informed, if know where you are on the pension system, know what those decisions and how those decisions are going to impact you, your spouse, your family. Because we all want to have like that time at the end be quality, good time, right?
Yeah.
Not, let's have the years at the end where we're dealing with multiple health crises and things of that nature. So I think it's good if the state's going to move in that direction, to move people to tier 3 or move everyone, because I think that would attract people to the profession that might say, oh, okay, I agree completely.
60 is so much different than 50 than 65.
Yeah.
100%. 100%.
I know it's 5 years, but it's not. It's so much more than that.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's such a big time difference. I mean, and then if you needed to leave a little bit earlier and the sacrifice at 3% is not the same, it's.
And then for tier 3, it's only 1%. So you could retire at 55 and only have a 5% deduction versus tier 5 right now. For me to retire at 55, it's a 30% deduction. So it's a huge, huge difference.
Wow.
Yeah. And that of course would impact you, like, I being tier 1, right? And knowing that I could retire at 55. Okay. Do I want to? Yes. All right. Is that no? And honestly, it's just because I'd like to do something else. I don't know what that's going to be, but I also know, like, I don't have to do that. I could continue. I could keep going if I want to. I'm happy to have that choice. But when you're almost like forced to, right? And you're at a point where, like, well, I don't know if I want to, like, you put in, like you said, put in the energy to stay on top of latest trends and be involved and do all those things that you want to do. There comes a time where you're like, now I need to let the new people kind of take the wings and take over.
Yeah.
I think it would be very important for people, that are already in the profession to be involved in those discussions. Very much so, because I think it's going to make a huge difference in policy. It's going to make a huge difference on state legislators that might decide to make some changes. And they've made changes for other public service areas, right? Police, fire, they've done that. Now let's take care of, arguably the most important profession in our country, right? Because we're, I don't want to start singing Whitney Houston, I believe the children are our future, but we kind of are shaping the young minds of tomorrow. Okay. And I think it's important to make sure that we're attracting the right people to the profession and to keep them in the classroom for the long haul.
Yeah, absolutely.
Agreed. Yeah, for sure.
Well, Kristen, we want to thank you for being a guest with us today. It was very eye-opening to talk to you. And we want to remind everybody that you can follow, TikTok and Instagram, actually, which is at
Nobody does Facebook anymore. Come on. Sir.
Don't look me up on Facebook.
Old people internet, right? Is that what we're calling it?
For moms. Facebook's for moms.
Yes. So it's at Teacher Pay with K. And again, Kristen, thanks a lot for joining us today.
Kristen, we appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Yes, Kristen.
Thank you guys so much. This was a great conversation. I'm so happy I could join.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate you, Kristen, and I appreciate you, Jamie. It's like
I appreciate you, Joe.
All right, we will see everybody next time on the Balancing Act Podcast.
Look for the Balancing Act podcast every week on your favorite podcast platform. New episodes drop every Tuesday. Thank you for being a part of our audience. We appreciate you.